It seemed like it was just a few days ago on the Rod Pedersen Show.
Todd Pinkney, one of our P1s who came to our Seattle Kraken expansion draft watch party the other night, asks if Monty the Squirrel's going to use the lawnmower 4.0 to trim his nuts. I was thinking more, how about that? But
How about that?
it's not an unreasonable question.
No, it is not.
Monty the Squirrel. Can we get that done up by the end of the show? And I'm in favor of your mom sewing the costume this time.
You are?
Yes.
Are you watching?
Paula?
She's probably watching.
What's going on back here? They're all laughing back there. Oh, I'd wonder. Oh.
Because then you paused. And I was like, this in favor of her? What?
I know. I heard them bust out laughing. I'm like, what are you?
And then you sewing the costume, and it's like, just disarmed me. I'm like, okay, we're good. She can sew the costume.
I'm in favor of your mom.
What? Say it. Say it.
Stay tuned, sit back, enjoy. Get ready for the Rod Pedersen Show. Right now,
People aren't very confident that Montreal's got this thing in the bag.
That's right.
We all know. But there's just something going on. Vegas is the better team. We all know that. They check pretty much every box. But I just think Montreal's got God on their side.
how about that?
Why he's not on the Golden Knights side is something we're going to have to talk about later. Well, how else do you explain it?
No, but I got some ideas
How
on
else
that.
do you explain what's going on? Vegas is better. Wait a minute. Maybe because it's Sin City.
This is the Rod Pedersen Show.
Yes, it is. Happy Football Friday, everybody. It's going to be a very interesting show for you today over the next 2 hours as we navigate this on the Game Plus television network. I believe we're on the air in Canada today. We weren't yesterday, but we were across the United States in 32 states. But it's going to be a nice little cross-border program today, and in a second I'm going to tell you why. Don't bring him in yet, guys. We had a bit of a miscommunication, a miscombobulation. The Moose is not with us today. But in a second, you'll be tantalized to know the Motor City Mad Mouse Scott Morganroth is going to join us from the South Florida Tribune. We do great work there. And an hour or two, as you are all accustomed to on these Football Fridays, Jim Barker will join us, the Los Angeles product, XFL champion, five-time Grey Cup champion. Jim Barker is going to be with us in hour two. And as I say, Football Friday, we got a lot of football to get to. But we're going to open it up with something that is not football related. We'll bring in the Motor City Mad Mouse, Scott Morganroth. And Scott, if you can just sit tight for a second. Guys, you want to hit the quick six show horn, and we'll just get right into it. We'll get right into the topic. What we do here, similar to what Scott and I do with George Eichhorn Thursday nights on the Sports Exchange, we talk about the sports topics of the day, the week. Scott, Bell Center, the Bell Center Montreal public address announcer Thursday night asked fans to be respectful of both the United States and Finland anthems ahead of the game at the Four Nations face-off. Many in attendance ignored that request last night. Large sections of the crowd booed the American national anthem ahead of the game, which the U.S. won 6-1 thanks to a 4-goal third period. USA forward Matthew Tkachuk of the Florida Panthers said, quote, "I didn't like it. And that's all I got." He finished the game with 2 goals and an assist. Fans at NHL games in Ottawa, Montreal, Calgary, and Vancouver booed the U.S. anthem in recent weeks after President Donald Trump announced potentially crippling tariffs and continues to muse about making the country's northern neighbor its 51st state. And I might add, in the waning minutes of last night's game, USA 6, Finland 1, a few U.S. fans could be heard shouting, "We want Canada!" in the Bell Center.
Right.
Man, it's touched off a controversy. You're an American by trade. You're from Detroit. You live here in South Florida now. I'm Canadian, but I'm a permanent resident of the United States. I wonder, look, this must have crossed your radar, Scott. Do you have thoughts on what went on last night in Montreal?
Well, a few years ago, it would have bothered me a lot more when the Canadians booed the national anthem, and I wrote a column for the Detroit Sports Broadcasters Association. They have a website now, they're Detroit Sports Media, calling the Montreal fans morons. And I got backlash like you wouldn't believe a long time ago. And I mean, I got hate mail over this thing. But let's move the clock up a little bit, Rod. I understand. I'm not so bothered by what the Canadians did this time around, and I'll tell you why. Let's face the reality. You do not go out there and impose tariffs on your neighbors north of the border. The United States and Canada have been friendly for ages, as long as you and I and then some have been alive. So I'm a bit more understanding of what took place there. So I'm not going to write any critical columns about it because I understand the justification for it. I really, really do. Donald Trump made his bed. Now the United States has to sleep in it with them. No, I'm not going to sit here and say what you do with Mexico is another story. No, build a wall. I don't care. You don't want the illegal stuff coming in leading to crime. But Canada, to me, is a beautiful country. I love going to Toronto. I've been to Vancouver before and saw a game at the old Pacific Coliseum. And mind you, I actually had a chance to meet up with Dave Hodge many years ago up at the Pacific Coliseum. It's pretty cool stuff. But every time I've been to Canada, Canadians have treated me awfully great. I mean, really great. I love Canada. I joke around a lot of times, my country, and I always joke around about it because of the Detroit-Windsor connection, because I used to go back and forth a lot of times in Canada. So I'm not reading the Canadians Riot Act this time around. I'm a lot more understanding and sympathetic this time, and hopefully Donald Trump, gets this thing figured out where there's certain people you want to make friends with and certain people you don't want to lose friends with. Canada is not one of those countries. I love Canada. I enjoy wearing the red and white.
Gotcha, Scott. And you're wearing it now. And Detroiters are honorary Canadians. So that's Scott's thing. So Scott wrote a column and called Canadians morons years ago. That's what I got out of that in Detroit for doing this exact same thing, but he's changed. I'm welcoming the crowd. This is amazing. This is amazing. George Baburis writes in, he says, Scott, best show, best time. Daytime sports talk here right now on television in Canada and the USA. And Joshua Dorr tuned in and says, I agree with Scott. He's from our regular viewership of the shows that Scott and I do down here. Bomber Boy in Calgary watching, he says that Canada didn't start this economic warfare. So if I can just bring this back because it is the RP show. And Tony from Cochrane writes in and he says, nope, you're not on Game Plus again in Canada today. Okay, whatever, I don't know. I'm not in charge of programming. I'm not the TV guide. Right. But thank you, Tony, for pointing that out. It doesn't change the job that I have to do, sitting in front of this microphone with my co-host, Scott Motor City Madmouse, Scott Morganroth. I still got to do a job,
right? Whether
we're on in Canada or not, I don't care. But I want to say this. I want to be sympathetic. It's our poll question today for EMJ Marketing. And by the way, look them up. They'll provide the perfect keynote speaker for your event. Look up Joe at emjmarketing.com. I'm on that roster. Jim Barker's on that roster. Rachel Homan, Stu Grimson, you name it, all the best. How do you feel about the booing of the U.S. anthem? Acceptable or not acceptable? And 67% of our respondents are saying it's not acceptable. And I think here's the other part of this, Scott, is people don't understand. The Americans don't really care. It's interesting that Matthew Tkachuk would come out and say, I didn't like it. But you know what? I was thinking to myself, have you ever been booed? I actually have, and I liked it. That might be the dark, sinister side of me. I didn't mind being booed. Have you been booed, Scott? If I booed you, how would it? Boo, Morgan Roth, you suck, boo. I actually don't mind it. But that's another story. Have you been booed?
Been booed. I don't care. Why would I care?
I don't care either.
When it comes to being booed, I have rocks in my head.
Yeah. Well, it's the thing. Okay, let me ask you this. Well, the other thing is you're basically booing Donald Trump is what you're doing, fans in the Bell Center or any of these Canadian arenas. Do you think he cares? He probably enjoys the attention, negative or positive. So I would ask you this, Motor City Madmouth, before we do switch to football, although I feel like this will be a theme throughout the program. How does it make them look, the Canadians look? How does it make the Canadians look? Because I can't have an opinion. I'm from there, but I live here. I'm kind of tapping out. How do you think it makes them look?
Not as bad as most people perceptualize it as, because of the Donald Trump factor. And yes, Rod, I will feed off what you just said moments ago. He doesn't care. Donald Trump simply doesn't care if he's being booed. He doesn't care. Once upon a time, okay, he wanted to buy the Buffalo Bills, and the NFL people wouldn't let him do it. They offered him $1 million in cash, and they turned him down. You know why? Because he held a grudge. They held a grudge against him with the USFL. Donald Trump doesn't care. He really, he feeds off this stuff. He's a president. Why should he? So again, you mentioned the comment unacceptable. Yeah, it's unacceptable, but to an extent, because I understand why this time around. Before I didn't. So, it depends on how you juggle your language, Rod. Unacceptable? Yeah, I'd say for the most part I wouldn't want to do it, but understandable? Yes. That's where the uns actually come into play.
Yeah, me too. And by the way, Rich in Edmonton chimes in. He says, isn't the current U.S. administration all about freedom of speech? Booing is an expression of freedom of speech. Sure. And that's why I want to stop the conversation right here, because I don't want to begin a border war, a holy war. Do what you want. I was raised by my father, a sportsman, if there ever was one, 26 years in the NHL as a scout. Don't ever boo. Don't ever boo. Cheer your team as much as you want. Don't boo the other team. And for God's sakes, don't boo your own. But the thing is, during COVID, Scott, you and I didn't know each other, but I had to do this show, write a column, do a commentary, and there was no sports for 4 months, right? So I was getting into the political realm, and everybody told me, stick to sports, stick to sports. And I'd never written about political things before, but there was nothing else to write and commentate about, right? So then I lost half the audience. So I'm like, okay, I'll stick to sports. So you sports, stick to hockey. And quit bitching about politics in a hockey arena. How about that? Okay?
Well,
so
Rod,
I'm done.
if you don't mind, can I add one more thing, which will really help this conversation out immensely? All right? When I first started with George Eichhorn in 1980, I wrote a controversial column, my first one for George, Don't Boycott the Olympics. And I got graded down, and this is in my book, Lessons from the Microphone, by the way, for people that will eventually, should they elect to invest in it. Don't boycott the Olympics. And my teacher graded me down to an A- on it. But you know what I did? No big deal. It got published by George. I took this paper and slammed it on her desk as hard as a 17-year-old kid could slam a piece of paper. I got it published. Take that, is what I told her. She was impressed, and she never doubted me again. She loved me at that point because you know what? You graded me down. I got this published. I said, George, get this published. And he did, and it worked out. Lesson to be learned. George Eichhorn is a man of his word. I was a man of my word to get something published. Never said, don't worry about getting anything published. I'm not putting nothing past you. I was 17, Rod. But what happened later, 1984? Moscow returned the favor of boycotting the 1984 Olympics, by which I was there. So, paybacks.
Well, that story appears very early on in your book, Lessons from the Microphone. But again, can we remind everybody, it's the Rod Pedersen Show. Jeremy Davis writes in from the Game Plus television control room in downtown Toronto. And he says, RP is only on U.S. today. Okay. So, again, I don't want to fight. I said this on your show last night. I don't like negativity. I am a very much you do you. You do you. You want to boo the U.S. anthem, go ahead. But Matthew Tkachuk has the right to say that he didn't like it. And it's just too bad. Okay, moving on to point 2. Aaron Rodgers, CFL talk later on this hour and an hour 2 when it's just me, everybody. Aaron Rodgers' tenure with the New York Jets began with lots of fanfare and Super Bowl aspirations. It ended less than 2 years later with a disappointing thud. The Jets slammed the door on the 41-year-old quarterback potentially returning to the team when they told Rodgers they're moving in a different direction. The 4-time MVP hasn't announced his playing plans for next year yet. But if Rodgers wants to get back into the huddle, it won't be with the Jets. There are a few quarterback-needy teams out there, such as the Titans, Browns, Giants, Raiders, and Steelers, that could be potential landing spots. Scott, I'll ask you, would you sign Aaron Rodgers if you were any one of those teams, Titans, Browns, Giants, Raiders, Steelers, or not? I'll go first and say, I'm not signing him. I'm not signing him at 41. Statistically, he had a pretty good year, though. Would you sign Aaron Rodgers?
Hey, Rod, I really like the reminder that this is the Rod Pedersen Show because you know why I love the reminder so much? And the reason why I love talking to my friends in Canada and the United States. So I appreciate the fact that you are reminding me that it's the Rod Pedersen Show because this is fun. I'm in my studio, you're in yours, and look at this stuff. Here we are. He's got a Florida State, and I have a Red Wing. Now, to answer your regular question, the one team, as I've thought through the whole process, that would make more sense than most people would realize, if I were Rodgers and the Steelers, I would get together and the Steelers should sign this guy. They really should. Why do I say that? Mike Tomlin, Rod. Mike Tomlin tolerated Antonio Brown. Okay. Mike Tomlin is a guy that can deal with the social media stuff. They haven't had stability at that quarterback position for a while. You keep some of those wide receivers that they have, you get Najee Harris to play much better. And Pittsburgh is a place where you may have, you're not worried about the Pat McAfee show as much because all they want to do is win. But keep in mind, they have not won a playoff game, Rod, since 2016. Let me take you back to memory lane, my friend. Okay, the last time they won a Super Bowl, Rod, was in Super Bowl 43. And guess what? Yours truly covered the
You
game
were there. It was in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. So I love the Steelers. They won a Super Bowl also in Detroit for Super Bowl 40. So I think Rodgers, believe it or not, of all the teams that you mentioned, would make the most sense in Pittsburgh. It's a small market town. They don't mind them. Let's face it. Once upon a time, Terry Bradshaw played for there. And for whatever it's worth today, I had an opportunity at the Super Bowl to talk to Terry Bradshaw at the Fox thing. It was awesome. It was a dream come true. I think Aaron Rodgers would be a much better fit than most people think in Pittsburgh. I really do.
Okay. Oh, man. Great stuff, Scott. Motor City Madmouth. By the way, Rich in Edmonton regarding that stuff, what went on in Montreal last night, he says, I come to this show to escape the everyday grind like politics, but I had to chime in. I know. But it's not us. It was the fans in Montreal that were booing, and that's why we're talking about it. So don't blame us. Number two, Scott, I wanted to get into this more with you after the break because we're a minute away from having to take a break here on network television. But I was talking to a football guy this morning. I don't want to say where. Here in the U.S., longtime friend of mine, with regards to the revolving door of players now. And we're going to get it later on a CFL free agency update. But Russell Wilson was signed to a one-year deal. He and Justin Fields took the Steelers to the playoffs. Now neither one is under contract for this season, right? It's all short deals. And I said, how do you feel? He's a general manager of a pro team. I said, how do you feel about these short contracts and continuity? He goes, we don't even care about continuity anymore. He goes, this is placed a premium on coaching. Okay, because you'd like to keep your 5 offensive line together for year after year after year, 4 D linemen, right? Your same receiver group. That's just not happening anymore, right? So he goes, there's a premium on coaching. We need to find a way around this. And don't worry about the fact that maybe you drop Aaron Rodgers into a Cleveland Browns locker room or a Vegas Raiders locker room because these are all short-term propositions now. Building isn't even a thing anymore. Okay, so and we'll get into more of that when we come back. And I do want to get into baseball too with Scott because he's a baseball guy and pitchers and catchers reported this week. We'll be right back on a Football Friday. USA only today, no Canada. Jim Barker coming up in hour 2. We are still live on Game Plus TV, streaming live and podcasting wherever the best podcasts are found.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit.
As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Canada's premier Junior A Hockey League deserves premier coverage, and at IKS Media, we have you covered for all things SJHL. SJHL Weekly on Monday, a live broadcast across our social media platforms where we interview your favorite players and coaches from across the league and preview the upcoming week. And on Thursday, SJHL Insider, where we look ahead to the weekend that will be and cover everything going on across the league. Catch it all on our social media platforms or on sjhl.ca.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Beautiful day in South Florida. We've had a great run lately. It's a football Friday. Some messages from the viewers on the Progressive Insurance text line 902-518-3033. Blair writes in. He says, "Hey, Rod, Blair in Calgary here. I'm watching on YouTube. Sorry if I missed a comment about why your show is not on Game Plus. Will the show be on in the future? Football Friday? I try not to miss it. Signed, Blair." I don't know. Yeah, we're going to be on Game Plus, but I'm not TV guide. Write them, right, Jeremy? At Game Plus. Write the guys at Game Plus. And really let them have it. You can tell them I told you to. You can bring the Motor City Badmouth in here. Ron in Calgary writes, and he says, awesome show. Yes, the Four Nations face-off didn't let us down. Good hockey. Looking forward to seeing the rest. Yeah, it's Canada, USA Saturday night, but I do want to stick to football. Tony from Cochrane, Alberta writes, and he says, no, we don't want that prima donna Aaron Rodgers in Cleveland. Put him in Dallas. Ha, ha, ha. Jeff in Calgary. Boy, we get a lot of viewers in Calgary today, Scott. Jeff in Calgary says, it's sad. The art of building is over. CFL, NFL speaks to how weak the GMs really are today. Quite frankly, anyone who is a good negotiator and can make a simple spreadsheet can do it. Do you think much about this, Scott? Because I really don't. That's why I had to call that pro GM this morning to get his take on building teams, because that's not what I do. It's not what you do. But we're very clearly in a new time.
Not really. No, we're here. We talk about what we hear. I want to build a team. What are we doing on the air? We can go out there and be a good 1-2 punch in somebody's front office. Once upon a time, Dan Marino decided to take a job at the Miami Dolphins front office and didn't last 4 to 6 weeks. So I guess it was a little bit too much work for Dan Marino, who I have no love lost toward. I can't stand him anyways. But that'll be for another show. You have time. But I'm not here to build teams. Don't get me wrong. I welcome the challenge to do anything if it makes sense. I really do. But come on, it's a much different day and age. Social media and the scrutiny.
Well,
But this is the point. You're like me. We don't think about it because that's not our job. Doesn't change the fact of the matter is it's somebody's job. Like, for instance, Carlos writes in from Indianapolis, and he says, Aaron Rodgers is going to bring stability to the quarterback position. He has only a season or two left in the tank. Rich in Edmonton, who's a Vegas Raiders fan, says 1 year as a Raider, I'd be totally fine with that. Let's remember, they don't really have a quarterback. The whole idea here, Scott, was that the Jets would acquire Aaron Rodgers, and he was the only thing missing. How'd that work out? Right?
Right.
The Browns aren't one piece away. The Titans aren't one piece away. The Vegas Raiders aren't one piece away. That's why I think, like I put this on our Instagram poll, would you sign Aaron Rodgers? It's 100% no. And if I asked you, I forgot. I'm a no on signing Aaron Rodgers. Are you?
I disagree with you. I would say yes at the right situation. So I'm giving you a yes.
Okay.
I would. I feel he has enough in the tank, and I'll tell you why. One, he could be a bridge quarterback for the next guy coming in for 1 or 2 years. Keep in mind, he was a bridge quarterback until they brought Jordan Love in. But again, Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh makes more sense. Everybody keep talking about the Raiders. Well, I'll tell you who would be better there. How about Russell Wilson? Pete Carroll's the coach. He's the last guy that won with Russell Wilson. Makes sense to me. Justin Fields, where would he go? I think Pittsburgh should entertain the possibility of re-signing him, letting him develop a little bit. You couldn't keep him and Russell Wilson together. You saw the end result. Heck, even Kenny Pickett won a ring as a backup quarterback with the Philadelphia Eagles, and one would have thought he would have been the quarterback of the future coming out of the University of Pittsburgh, right in the same building, but that didn't kind of work out. So I would sign Rodgers. I really would. And again, I mentioned it earlier. I believe Pittsburgh's the right fit. Russell Wilson's a good fit in Las Vegas, but we're entitled to disagree, Rod. We really are. Obviously, I've covered the NFL for a long, long time. I'm on the media distribution list of a lot of a few teams. I'm looking to add 1 or 2 more, and I'll divulge those when they come to fruition. And I've covered 5 Super Bowls, and I'm on the NFL communications list, and I have a lot of contacts in the business. So, and I have a show dedicated to football.
Jack in Vulcan, Alberta writes in, he says, I miss the days when there was true loyalty, teams to veteran players. Oh, don't we all? But Jack, as Dr. Seuss said, don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened. I'm not sure that'll ever come back. Rich in Edmonton, that Raiders fan, says, a 1-year stopgap until you draft and develop, but here's the other thing. Yes, I get it. You want to draft a Shadir Sanders. You want to draft a Cam Ward, whoever's available where you're picking, and bring in a veteran, which is what happened in Minnesota this year. Worked pretty well, right? You bring in Sam Darnold. They didn't expect J.J. McCarthy was going to go down in training camp. Worked out pretty well, right? With the potential to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. They ended up falling to 5th. But here's the thing about Aaron Rodgers, Scott, that he's not just any 4-time MVP. He's a big personality. He's going to question his bosses. Teams don't like that. He got Robert Saleh fired. Would we not agree on that? That's the thing. He's an X factor. He's more than just that veteran guy walking into your locker room. He's a lot to handle.
I mean, if you're asking me, is Aaron Rodgers a perfect drama king? I'll say yes. Okay. But the only thing that got Robert Saleh fired is Woody Johnson, because he didn't understand that Robert Saleh was as good a coach as he was. All you have to do was the fact that Saleh was 2-3 and look at the Jets' record after he left. Their defense was absolutely atrocious. We know that Rodgers is a high drama act. Why do you think I keep telling you, if he goes to Pittsburgh, he's not as bad? And with Mike Tomlin, I do totally believe that situation, and I'm not backing off no matter how many times you rephrase the questions or give me your opinion. It doesn't matter as far as I'm concerned, because I'm going to stick to what I believe in based on the personalities that we're talking about. Yeah, I'll give you that too. Okay, no big deal. We can point at each other. We do it all the time and have a lot of fun doing it. But the reality of the situation is Rodgers, to me, is one of those types of guy as a 1 or 2 year player. Let me take it back a point. Jared Goff, everybody reeled him off with the Rams, right? Sean McVay wanted no part of the guy. Well, okay, no problem. They traded him for Matt Stafford. And by the way, if to go deeper into the trade, Brad Holmes, the former guy with the Rams, got a bunch of draft capital out of it. How did that work out? As much as that Herschel Walker to the Vikings, Cowboys, because Brad Holmes fleeced the Rams and got so much draft capital, much of it made the roster of the Lions. Lions haven't gotten to the Super Bowl yet, and the Rams got their Super Bowl the first year and have gone downhill since. So when you talk about trades and put them in their proper perspective, all the Lions did was eat a bad contract that the Rams didn't want to even have. And as it turns out, he ended up fitting into Dan Campbell's scheme of things, and they extended him. So, here, you want a wild card who could go to Cleveland that nobody's talking about, Ron? What about Hendon Hooker, the backup quarterback for the Lions? The Lions could get value out of this guy since he was a third or fourth pick, busted up out of the University of Tennessee. They could get him. Nobody's talking about him yet, but they will. Remember the name, people everywhere? Hendon Hooker is a tradable asset. So, I know where you're going. Keep in mind, when you have a guy for 1 or 2 years, it's a bridge quarterback to develop somebody else. Now, do I think Sam Darnold's price tag will be higher? Sure, but it's going to drop a little bit because of the way he played in the playoffs, and teams are going to look at that. How much is he going to get? Time will tell. We'll see how desperate teams are. Now, if I were going to say one place I think Sam Darnold could go, what about Las Vegas? Why? Pete Carroll, Rod. Why do I keep bringing Pete Carroll? Because of USC. Ever heard of University of Southern California? I know I have. Okay, yeah, the Coliseum's right over there, all that kind of stuff. It's a great program. Bucket list item. I want to get to the Coliseum. So there's a lot of moving parts, Rod, that there aren't many places Rodgers can't fit in at all. You don't want the drama, but if you think the production outweighs the drama and you know what you're getting into, it's not bad. They tolerated Antonio Brown.
Yeah. I was going to say, Mike Tomlin is the strong enough personality to keep a guy like that, I would hope, in line. By the way, the Motor City Mad Mouse, Scott Morganroth, with us. Scott and I both have big personalities. We collide. But the thing is, we make beautiful music together. That's why people are loving this show. They love it. The most viewed show, Scott, you told me this morning, on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network is the ones that you and I do together. So let's be honest about it. People love us together, although sometimes I want to wring his neck. By the way, Brian in Hudson's Bay, Saskatchewan writes in. He says, I love the big wheel on the Mad Mouth shirt. Love me some Red Wings. Lifelong fan here. He has some Red Wings questions for you, but we're trying to keep it to Football Friday. And I see everybody is lighting up the Game Plus TV social media channels, ringing their phone off the hook that we're not on the television in Canada today. U.S. only on Game Plus TV today. Rennie from the Game Plus control room writes on and says, we still have Spanish League basketball today, live at 12:30 and 3:30. You are back on Game Plus Canada on Tuesday, unless you have a show Monday, which we don't, because it's President's Day. Bingo. And don't bring me back to Donald Trump again. President's Day in the U.S. and Family Day in Canada. No, there will be no show on Monday. Listen, I could ask you the Red Wings question, but I told you I would ask you about baseball, Scott. So let me just back this up a little bit. Everybody's excited here, as you can tell. You live here with me. Not together, folks, but in the same area. Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s negotiating window on a long-term contract extension with the Blue Jays is closing as Toronto opens its spring training in Dunedin, Florida. General Manager Ross Atkins said at the start of today's camp that, quote, desire is strong to keep Vladdy in Toronto, but the star first baseman who can become a free agent after the season has said he will negotiate until Tuesday before focusing on baseball for the season. Tell our viewers, I guess we're not on in Canada, but on YouTube we are. The Blue Jays are relevant in Canada, and that's about it. Why would they be relevant? Every major U.S. market has their own team. Where's your baseball focus right now, Scott? Marlins, Tigers, or somewhere else?
Well, Rod, I really think you're the nicest guy on the planet, because you say sometimes you'd like to wring my neck. I can tell you right now, all the time, I'd like to wring your neck, so don't feel too bad. But that's why we have such a good time when we're on the air. So really, I like to wring your neck all the time, but I love working with you. You're one of the best co-hosts I've ever had in my 45 years in the business, and that's why it's a whole lot of fun working with you. Now, to answer your question about the Jays, my focus right now are mainly on the Miami Marlins. You can say it as much as you want, as bad as they are, but I've been covering the Marlins for the last several years. I cover a lot of games, so I have to to know what's going on with my specific team. The Detroit Tigers are a team that I certainly keep dear to my heart. But I'm going to tell you something. There's a guy by the name of Don Mattingly who's a bench coach in Toronto. And for those of you that go to my website, southfloridatribune.com, I asked a question with Don Mattingly about too many no-hitters. And Don Mattingly and I have become personal friends. We are friends, Rod, and everybody else. We're good friends. Every time I see him, it's always a hug. How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then we talk and, we just take pictures. It's really about friendship. Now, to the Guerrero question, Toronto must sign this guy. And I'll tell you why they must sign him. He's a player that is, for me, Canada. He represents all of what baseball will be about in Canada. If you can go out there and succeed in Canada, you not only are a big presence in the United States, but you also own that country. You don't have another baseball team there, do you? Once upon a time, you had the Expos. But this is his thing. Now, I mentioned on the Sports Exchange on Wednesday night where Brandon Ingram went ahead and signed a 3-year extension with the Raptors. He's the type of guy, amidst his injury situation, gets around that. He could also be a star in Canada because Canadians appreciate stars. They really do. And they will tell you, I've gone to enough Canadian games. Most of them, of course, in Toronto. I've been to one in Vancouver for the most part, but those are two of your biggest cities in the country, right? Vancouver and Toronto, and they'll embrace them. I've never been to a game in Montreal, so I can't really comment on that, and I won't. So they have to sign Guerrero. I love the Blue Jays. They treated me great when I was at the Sky Dome or whatever you call it these days. I don't even know what they call it, but the PR people were really nice. Okay, well, thanks. I don't know about advertising, but I just always know it as a Sky Dome. Their PR people treated me great. They were fantastic. I love the Jays. I always pull for them. This was Candy Ebling's first opportunity to cover a game actually outside of the United States, taking pictures over, what you call it, the Rogers Center. So they have to sign him, period. Otherwise, if he starts focusing on baseball, his market value goes up, and the longer you wait and he has a productive year, he could be out of your price range.
All right, everybody. Well, Scott's lovely wife, Candy, who he calls the Rolls-Royce of women, is his photographer. And I'll be honest, from what I can see, she does all the work at the South Florida Tribune. I don't really know what you do, Scott. She seems to do it all. But Jack writes in from Vulcan, Alberta, and says, I miss watching my go-to North American live sports talk show, the RP Show. Been a crazy last 10 months. Love you, RP. Love you too, Jack. And he also says, Rod and Scott keeping it real, always. Well, you're a big fan, Jack, of John Frenzy, who's not with us anymore, the Hall of Fame Rough Riders broadcaster, but Scott is the USA version of John Frenzy. Trust me with that. You know I wouldn't steer you wrong. You can't stop Scott Morganroth. You can only hope to contain him. A little like Herschel Walker. You brought him up earlier this week. You can't stop Scott. You can only hope to contain him, and that is a job in and of itself. Okay, Scott, I think that's it.
I really don't know what I do here except broadcast. I don't know what I do here at the Tribune. All I do is broadcast right once in a while and put shows together. But you know what? With all due respect, Candy is the MVP. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Sorry about that.
I knew that. Hey, at least you're honest. Sea Lightning writes in and says, when does Scotty breathe? When does Scotty breathe? I haven't figured that out yet, Sea Lightning, but he brings it. He brings it. All right, Scott, have a great weekend. Have a great President's Day.
Thanks for having me on, Rod. God appreciate you. God, have a great weekend, buddy. Thank you.
Great job. The Motor City Mad Mouse, Scott Morganroth. He's real, folks. He is real, and he's the publisher of the South Florida Tribune, for which I write an NHL column every week. John Ohm has showed up. Right on time, John. He says, Football Friday. Yes, it is. So far, we've been talking Four Nations hockey, face-off, Aaron Rodgers, Major League Baseball, as you might have just heard. And I do want to get to that CFL stuff. Got a sports update coming up. We've got a brand new sponsor we're very excited about. We're going to tell you about that. And Jim Barker in hour 2. We'll be right back here live on the Game Plus Television Network. Again, USA only today, not Canada, but streaming live and podcasting wherever the best podcasts are found.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house. Canada's premier Junior A Hockey League deserves premier coverage, and at IKS Media, we have you covered for all things SJHL. SJHL Weekly on Monday, a live broadcast across our social media platforms where we interview your favorite players and coaches from across the league and preview the upcoming week. And on Thursday, SJHL Insider, where we look ahead to the weekend that will be and cover everything going on across the league. Catch it all on our social media platforms or on sjhl.ca.
Hi, my name is Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
From cash spiels to grand slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders, plus behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
All right, a football Friday rolls on from beautiful Boca Raton, Florida. They really love football here. No doubt about that. I'm going to get to a sports update in a second. I'm just going to warn you for the next 40 minutes, it's just you and me. Me sitting in front of this camera, this microphone, talking to you, and you're welcome to be part of the discussion. We've got a brand new sponsor. A brand new sponsor. Way to go, Joe and Jared and everybody in our sales department. Heavy Gym. Heavy Gym isn't just about lifting weights. It's about lifting your spirit, your strength, and your potential. Step into the gym that's changing lives. Find out more at heavygym.ca. And I'll get to that sports update in a moment. But you're going to be hearing a lot about Heavy Gym over the next couple months and on our podcast as well, because do I need to remind people we are on national television. You have a great podcast. Moose said it best 6 years ago, 1,435 episodes ago. We're a show. TV, radio, podcast, all those things. I'm just glad you're here. And for the football fans, let me just get a few of the comments here. Tony from Cochrane writes in, he says, I disagree about signing Vladdy. Toronto can't afford to mortgage the next 10 years on one wishy-washy player. A large haulback on a trade would set them up for a better future. 6-time All-Star, face of the franchise. You got to keep a guy like that. Bomber Boy is watching in Calgary. He says, Rod, CFL GMs are operating like the salary cap didn't go up. Thoughts? Hang on. Jack in Alberta says, who has won free agency in the CFL? So far, my guy Mark Killam is kicking butt in Elks country. And what else we got here? Let me read what's new on the free agency front before I answer some of those questions. Stephen Dunbar, this is as of last night. Stephen Dunbar is back with the Edmonton Elkamos. The veteran American receiver signed in with Edmonton as a free agent Thursday. He's coming off a stellar 2024 campaign with Hamilton where he caught 1,159 yards. Meanwhile, in Vancouver, David Mackey is calling it a career. The BC Lions veteran Canadian fullback announced his retirement after 6 years with the club. Calgary Stampeders signed veteran American linebacker Gary Johnson Jr. The 6-foot, 230-pound Johnson became a free agent Tuesday after spending the last 2 seasons with the Ottawa Red Blacks. He began his CFL career with the Riders 2019 to 2022. The Toronto Argos have signed American defensive lineman Brian Cox Jr. The 6'3", 270-pound Cox spent the last 2 seasons with Saskatchewan, and in Ottawa, the Red Blacks have signed Canadian fullback Anthony Gosselin to a 1-year contract extension. So that's what's gone down in the last 24 hours in the CFL. Now, so I wanted to point this out. Moose is calling a hockey game right now in Toronto, actually a university game. Apparently it's a holiday out there in Toronto or Ontario. Is that why we're not on Game Plus in Canada today? I don't know. But he's not here, obviously. Moose not here. So we were going over who are we going to get? And it was actually Clark's idea to bring in the Motor City Madmouse, Scott Morganroth. And I said, well, we can do that, but he can't talk CFL. I mean, he could, but it would be all gibberish. BS. He knows MLB, NFL, college. That's his thing. CFL is not his. And why am I bringing that up? I'm not totally sure, other than I was going about a half an hour before we went to air. I called a friend of mine, pro football GM, and just said, how do we feel about a few things? Number one, this, and it's going to be in my newsletter. I should throw this out there right now. Disclaimer or promo. Sign up right now at rodpeterson.com. Sign up for free for my newsletter, which drops Sunday. 10 Things column, Moose's column, Scruffy's column, 10 WHL Things column, betting tips from Moose. Got a lot of fun things happening there. Also brought to you by Heavy Gym. And I said, what do you know about this CFL salary cap bump of 10% being announced right in the middle of free agency? And he goes, they knew it was coming. He goes, don't let them tell you that they didn't know. He goes, for instance, some GMs were spending like they knew it was coming. Ed Hervey, who was the guy that went out and spent the most money before everybody else and signed largely the best players that were going to market. Ed Hervey in Edmonton. He said, if anybody tells you, a GM, that they didn't know that this salary bump was coming, they're lying. So again, this is coming from the football people, because what the hell do I know? And if you want to hear a little more of the conversation, stick around, because we have to take a break. We'll be right back with a mini overtime. See, it gets going fast when I get into this stuff, when it's just you and me. And I haven't even asked for your feedback yet. 902-518-3033. Progressive Insurance text line is open for business. We'll be right back here on Game Plus TV, streaming live and podcasting wherever the best podcasts are found.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. the Create Space at IKS.
Canada's premier Junior A Hockey League deserves premier coverage, and at IKS Media, we have you covered for all things SJHL. SJHL Weekly on Monday, a live broadcast across our social media platforms where we interview your favorite players and coaches from across the league and preview the upcoming week. And on Thursday, SJHL Insider, where we look ahead to the weekend that will be and cover everything going on across the league. Catch it all on our social media platforms or on sjhl.ca.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
From cash spiels to grand slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders, plus behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
You can call it a mini overtime, and I'm going to get to a sports update here in a second, boys, so get ready, please, with a heavy gym logo. But yeah, you're looking live at the studio here in Boca Raton, Florida. Where's this message? It came in from Rich in Edmonton. He goes, 26 degrees in Fort Lauderdale when I checked my weather app on my way to work this morning. There's a reason Rod is in South Florida. Yeah, buddy. And that's about 12 miles that away. Where Matt DeBuck is right now, he almost joined us when we were scrambling to find somebody to fill in for the Moose today. But Scotty Morgan-Roth was more than happy to fill in from home. We opened the show talking about Canadian hockey fans in Montreal booing the U.S. national anthem last night. And that's our poll question for EMJ Marketing. There you go. Leave that heavy gym up. Brand new sponsor today. Tell you more about them in a second. But EMJ Marketing brings you the poll question every day, and we're asking, how do you feel about Canadian hockey fans booing the U.S. anthem last night? Acceptable or unacceptable? 67% of you saying it's unacceptable. Vince in Manitoba writes that he says, sorry, a bit late joining regarding booing. Ask yourself at what point would you boo the U.S. anthem? I never would have, but now the line has been crossed. And we had the viewer writing in earlier saying, hey, I come to this show to not talk about politics. Hey, we do this show to not talk about politics. Not my fault they were booing the USA in Montreal last night. We're going to talk about it. And I know I'm going to continue that story on the CFL salary cap stuff. As I look at our screen here, how about the CFL sent this hat? They sent this football. They sent a bunch of nice stuff, this mug.
We're big CFL fans here on this program, as are our viewers in the United States. That's why they've tuned in. Bomber Boy, who's in Calgary, writes in and he says, the Blue Bombers have made around $10 million over the last 2 years and are hosting the Grey Cup this year. Shouldn't they be the most inclined to spend to the cap? Meanwhile, Shy in Saskatchewan writes in, he says, the Elkies, Edmonton, got the jump in signing a lot of good players. Bombers tanked by not keeping up with the salary cap. This is kind of funny when you think about it. Thank you, Jack, for the kind words. The Bombers have been in 5 straight Grey Cups, and even their own fans think they're not doing enough. You get a sound effect for that, Clark? The Bombers have been in 5 consecutive Grey Cups, and their own fans are mad at them. They're not doing enough. How about that? That's like a pooch. How about the Let's Make a Deal one? Or what's that show? Get the game show one. Yeah, because Kyle Walters doesn't know what he's doing. Or Mike O'Shea, the head coach. Taylor in Calgary says, but hang on, that can't. They're having a conversation amongst themselves, and that's fine. We encourage that here. I just can't keep up with it all. Jeff, the Stamps fan, says, the sins of the past are coming back to haunt the Bombers now, says the fan of the team that finished dead last year. Jeff, pipe down. So I said to that football guy here, I said, why? Because it happens in all leagues. Travis Kelce, I read this morning, has been given a week by the Kansas City Chiefs to decide whether or not he's coming back next year, or else he's going to be cut because he's due a $14.5 million bonus. I've talked to the agents about this. I said, why do you guys put bonuses in the contracts? Because it just feels like it makes your player a sitting duck in the offseason to get cut ahead of it. And both this football guy, ops guy that I talked to today said this, and an agent that I talked to last week. So they will always put the bonuses in the contracts. What they would prefer to get is the money up front bonus, signing bonus, which doesn't happen as much anymore, thanks to certain guys who we know don't name to take the bonus and then never play again. So they want to hide that bonus maybe a year into a multi-year deal. And the guys say about 50% they think of guys will ever see that bonus, will collect on it. 50% are going to get cut ahead of it. 50% will get the bonus, and you never hear about it because it's not news. That's why the bonuses are in. We can get into more of that because we're running out of time here. Get into more after the break. The sports update is for Heavy Jim. The city of brotherly love will show some extra love today with a Super Bowl parade on Valentine's Day. The Philadelphia Eagles cruise to a 40-22 win over the Kansas City Chiefs Sunday. Jalen Hurts named the MVP. After the parade, the Eagles will be honored with a ceremony on the Rocky Steps. The Scotties Tournament of Hearts gets underway tonight in Thunder Bay, Ontario with 4 games. Team Canada, skipped by our good friend Rachel Homan, begins its defense of the Canadian Women's Curling Championship against Jane DiCarlo's squad from PEI. There are 2 draws tomorrow and 3 on Sunday in the 18-team event. The sports update is for Heavy Jim. Say it loud for those in the back. Heavy Jim isn't just about lifting weights. It's about lifting your spirit, your strength, and your potential. Step into the gym that's changing lives. Find out more at heavygym.ca. I know Tony over there. He runs the place, and he is changing lives. Thanks for coming aboard, Tony. Hour 2 is going to be a banger. Stick around. We'll be right back.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
IKS Game Day wishes to congratulate the City of Estevan and Affinity Place on their brand new center ice display. This state-of-the-art score clock features 5 LED faces with full motion graphics, scoring integration, and our new Halo mounting system. If it's time for an upgrade, let us show you how to deliver the best fan experience. You can find us at IKSGameDay.com.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Right now,
people aren't very confident that Montreal's got this thing in the bag.
That's right.
We all know, but there's just something going on. Vegas is the better team. We all know that. They check pretty much every box. But I just think Montreal's got God on their side.
How about that?
Why he's not on the Golden Knights side is something we're going to have to talk about later. Well, how else do you explain it?
No, but I got some ideas.
How else do you explain what's going on? Vegas is better. Wait a minute. Maybe because it's Sin City.
This is the Rod Pedersen Show.
Yeah, 1 hour left before the weekend. Hey, everybody, welcome to the RP Show. It's a football Friday, and we got down to some football near the end of hour one, maybe the last half of hour one. Moose ain't here. He's broadcasting hockey in Toronto today. Is it a holiday there? Nobody ever did. Explain to me what the deal is. Doesn't matter. We had the Motor City Mad Mouse Scott Morganroth with us last hour, and he's always a treat, isn't he? The publisher of the South Florida Tribune, and he will remind me, my boss, when it comes to the Florida newspaper down here. I write an NHL column for him. Bob McAllister writes in from Saskatoon. He is Game Plus on in Saskatoon. I feel like it must be. Bob goes, it's like Scott just walked into Cheers. He would fit in a Boston bar or Detroit bar. Walk in, every one chance, Scott! Or they'd be ducking for the exits. Can you imagine the Motor City Madmouth and booze? We tease the hell out of each other. We have a lot of fun. I'll get to your comments in a second. They spill over from hour one with what we've been talking about. So now would be a great time, guys. You want to hit the quick six show horn, and we'll re-up on what we're talking about. It's not all football today.
But it's largely going to be, especially coming up next segment when Jim Barker joins us, CFL on TSN analyst, 5-time Grey Cup champion. And there is a lot to get to NFL-wise. Where's Aaron Rodgers going to go? CFL free agency. And how big of a deal is it? This was actually point 4 of our quick 6 show topics. How big of a deal is it that the CFL, right in the middle of free agency, announced a 10% salary bump? I had a football guy here in the States who's very closely connected to the CFL, worked in it for a long time, said the GMs knew that it was coming. Don't let them tell you that they didn't. Ed Hervey's a perfect example of a guy that spent to that because he knew it was coming. Anybody that tells you they didn't know is lying. So, there. But he just hit the quick 6 show horn. Here's our topics. Number 1, Bell Centre, Montreal public address announcer asked fans to respect both the USA and Finnish national anthems last night prior to the Four Nations face-off hockey game in Montreal. Many in attendance, however, ignored that request. Large sections of the crowd booed the American national anthem ahead of the game, which the U.S. won 6-1 thanks to a 4-goal third period. Matthew Tkachuk of the Florida Panthers and Team USA said after the game, quote, "I didn't like it, and that's all I got." He didn't want to address it, just to say he didn't like it. He finished with 2 goals and a helper. Fans at NHL games in Ottawa, Montreal, Calgary, and Vancouver booed the U.S. anthem in recent weeks after President Donald Trump announced potentially crippling tariffs and continues to muse about making the country's northern neighbor its 51st state. In the waning minutes, a few U.S. fans could be heard shouting, "We want Canada! We want Canada!" Be careful what you wish for. But anyways, that's our poll question for EMJ Marketing today. And the reason I'm reaching my phone is I want to see what the results of the vote are right now. For EMJ Marketing, they'll provide the perfect keynote speaker for your event. Contact Joe there at emjmarketing.com. How do you feel about booing the U.S. anthem at Canadian sporting events? 64% of you saying it's not acceptable. From DF, here's some of the responses in the mentions. DFS spreadsheet says it doesn't solve anything. From Vintage Sasko, he says, "I don't like it. Still think anthems should always be respected. Find another form of protest." From my good friend Craig Pecchio Adam, he says, "Bush," as in Bush League. Scott writes in and he says, only the liberal thumpers think it's acceptable because they feel very threatened that their party is coming to an end. Andy, on the other hand, writes in, Andy Johnson, he says, "I'm not taking a knee to a mob boss threatening our country, and decent Americans would agree." And CFL number 1 fan Sharon writes in and she says, "I don't like it, but should we just roll over and hand our country to a person who detests our people and loves our resources? Don't for one second think we would be anything but second class to the U.S. should we get gobbled up." Hashtag Canadian Polly. And that's where we will end the political discussion. I love Rich in Edmonton. He wrote in here last hour. He goes, "I tune into this show not to talk about politics." I'm like, I get that. But it was the hockey fans in Montreal that mixed politics and sports. I don't like it either, but they did. So we're going to talk about it. And I think more than anything, the gentleman who said it, what's it going to solve, probably hit it all. Because number 1, you're not hurting Donald Trump's feelings. He doesn't have any. And number 2, Americans don't even know you did it because they're not paying attention to the Four Nations face-off. Sorry, I said it. You know, having said that, I was listening to Dan Patrick yesterday on sports radio, Fox Sports 640 South Florida, and Dan Patrick was talking about it, but that's in the absence of anything else to talk about. Did you know the NBA All-Star break is this weekend, the All-Star game? Football's over. They weren't talking about Aaron Rodgers just yet. But just because Dan Patrick was talking about hockey doesn't mean anybody else around here is. They ain't. So to the CFL thing, because it is a football Friday and you came here for that, I will remind you, we're on Game Plus Television Network, but not in Canada, only in the USA. So if you have USA football things and related topics to bring up, fire them my way. I know there are UFL fans, United Football League fans, just lurking, waiting in the weeds. We won't be talking about the UFL other than maybe to read the scores. I don't even know when the league kicks off. And we talked about those bonuses in CFL contracts, or for that matter, pro football contracts. because Travis Kelce's due a $14.5 million bonus next week. And the Chief says you have a week to decide whether you're coming back next year, because if you don't let us know, we're cutting you. So I talked to the football people, and they said, we put these bonuses in. Well, here's a direct quote from one agent who's watching right now because he's probably pissed that we're not on in Canada. Hopefully he found us digitally. But he goes, we like the bonuses because it tells us how serious the teams are about our client. If they really want our client, they put the bonuses in, And if they're really, really serious about our client, they'll do a signing bonus. But failing that, if they don't want to do that, we'll play for a year and then have a bonus in the offseason before year 2 kicks in. That's why they put them in, interestingly enough. So I'll reiterate. Not the agent, but the other football guy said that these GMs in the CFL knew the 10% bump was coming. Don't let them say they didn't. And that's why guys like Ed Hervey looked like overspent in free agency, but they knew they were going to have over $400,000 more to spend. Shy in Saskatchewan writes in, he says, the Riders may have an older quarterback in Trevor Harris, but he's not that much older than Zach Collaros. True, I'm a fan of both guys, but at least Collaros won. It's really, really interesting in Saskatchewan what's going on with the football team. And the fact of the matter is that's still where the bulk of our viewership is. I only spent a half a century there. I love them and they love me in that place. But those fans will believe anything that they're told. That's a fact. And my good friends, a lot of them believe that they have a Grey Cup championship caliber team. We'll see. I don't agree. Ted in Red Deer writes in, he says, hey, Rod, back in the day, you must have a Roy Chivers free agent story. That was our general manager who's gone to the Hall of Fame. I don't really know how or why he got in there, but he's in there. And today, I'd have to think about it. I'm not sure that, of course, I have a million Roy Chivers free agent stories. Shit. But the thing is, they're not flattering. And it was almost spelt the end of my time in Saskatchewan prematurely, because when Henry Burris signed in Calgary for the 2005 season, Henry was my guy. Roy was not my guy. And I believe that Roy Chivers didn't want anybody on his roster making more than him. He wasn't going to offer Henry more than $250,000 a year. This was CFL terms at the time. And then he said a bunch of disparaging things about Henry and Henry's wife. And Calgary ends up offering him $500,000, a home, 2 SUVs, off-season jobs. Why wouldn't Henry go there? And then he became vilified for the next 10 years, all because of Shivers' ego. But you all love him, and Roy's in the Hall of Fame. I don't get it. And I was hauled into the radio station manager's office and told, well, you might be boys with Henry, but he's now in Calgary, and you still got to sit here and deal with Shiv. So how'd that work out? I said, I'll be here longer than Roy. Does that mean anything, Clark?
How about that?
B. Henderson writes in regarding the booing of the national anthem. He says, B. Henderson says, as long as the felon is president and continues to disrespect Canada by calling PM Trudeau governor, or Canada the 51st state, I would boo the American anthem as well. And I think more than anything, there's room for that argument. Canadians are pissed off at Donald Trump. So 1:11 Eastern, by the way, 11:11 Mountain, if you're into that sort of thing. Yeah. 1:11.
Beautiful.
That's why I recused myself from the discussion an hour ago and deferred to the Motor City Madmouth, Scott Morganroth, because he's from Detroit, lives here in South Florida now. We work together at the newspaper. And I said, how does it make Canadians look? And he's like, He goes, now that I understand why they're doing it, not that bad. What did I say earlier this week? Perception's reality, Rod. Is it? The perception is Canadians are a bunch of, I don't know what, elitists, snobs, or something because they're booing the U.S. national anthem. But the reality is they got good reason. Does that change things? Apparently it does. Is perception reality or is reality reality? I hate that argument. Back to the Bomber fans being upset why they haven't spent more in free agency. And I said, what literally do they need to prove, even to their own fans, let alone everybody else, that they might know what they're doing? 5 consecutive Grey Cups. Vincent Manitoba writes in and says, so true. The Jets are in first place. Some of our fans are still calling for Chevy's head. Kevin Shoveldayoff, the GM. Now the Bombers are failures because they go to the Grey Cup every flipping year. Go figure. You can't figure it out. So sometimes you just need to walk away. Shy in Saskatchewan says, big question. Did Ed Hervey, the GM at Edmonton, overspend in free agency when he has to go out and sign players throughout the season? What exactly are you saying? I'm telling you, I was told he knew there was going to be a 10% bump in the salary cap, so he went out and spent it. And that's not everything that I learned. If you want to hear what that is or read what that is, sign up before Sunday for the Rod Pedersen Rod Squad newsletter. Go to rodpedersen.com, click on newsletter, and sign up for it. It's free. We'll have a lot more CFL information in there for you this weekend. John in Winnipeg says CFL contracts should be written in pencil. Yeah, well, that's not new. Oh, there's a lot of comments coming here. Chad in Red Deer says, to be clear, I'm not a Roy Shivers fan, but I do love RP stories about Roy. To be honest, it's just RP stories, really. But Roy is an easy trigger. Oh, he didn't trigger me. Certainly not anymore. He's not the one in rider history that would trigger me. But I remember near the end of his time, 2006, midway through the season when he got fired, we used to have the practice. Remember the old practice field, the grass field that was like a cow pasture with a chain link fence around it? Danny Barrett was like, we're having a closed practice. DB, we can see what's going on from Elphinstone Street. Don't matter, it's closed. Hey, Roy, can you come on my radio show tonight? I'm not boosting your ratings. It's kind of your job, Roy. I don't care. Good talk. Jeff, the Stamps fan, writes, and he says, regardless of the story, we view Burris's return to Calgary as justice. He was our player to start with, and he belonged here. Oh, it's all intertwined, weird CFL stories. B. Henderson in Winnipeg says, because Roy brought Hank to Calgary, then stole him in Sass. It depends on who you think belongs to what. Thank you, Jeff, for pointing out it was 37 years ago the Olympic Cauldron was lit at McMahon Stadium to open the games of the 15th Winter Olympiad. Was it only the 15th? I trust you if you say that. I ended up going there. It was my last trip with my parents. Last trip as a high school kid. We had so much fun. We went to hockey. We went to cross-country skiing, downhill skiing. Big fun. Love Calgary. Tired of pretending that I don't. Why did I ever? B. Henderson and says, you're spot on, Rod. Trump doesn't have any feelings. You're just figuring this out? Okay, last one. It's a good one from Rich in Edmonton. He says, that was an odd era for the Riders, Rod. They went from lovable losers to curmudgeon dinks. Yeah, because we started to win. I can tell you what I'd rather be. It sucked being lovable losers. I'd far rather be hated than be pitied. Jim Barker joins us next. Get all your CFL questions in. We'll be right back here on Game Plus Television, streaming live and podcasting wherever the best podcasts are found.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
From cash spiels to Grand Slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders, plus behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
Canada's premier Junior A Hockey League deserves premier coverage, and at IKS Media, we have you covered for all things SJHL. SJHL Weekly on Monday, a live broadcast across our social media platforms where we interview your favorite players and coaches from across the league and preview the upcoming week. And on Thursday, SJHL Insider, where we look ahead to the weekend that will be and cover everything going on across the league. Catch it all on our social media platforms or on sjhl.ca.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit.
As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Football Friday rolls on, and by the way, we're pleased to welcome a brand new sponsor, Heavy Gym. Heavy Gym isn't about lifting weights, not just about lifting weights anyways. It's about lifting your spirit, your strength, and your potential. Step into the gym that's changing lives. Find out more at heavygym.ca. Very happy to have my guy Tony aboard. I've known him a long time. Runs a great shop over there. Jim Barker joins us, our football analyst, five-time Grey Cup champion. And Jim, here we are, my guy. Football ended last week, at least as far as games. So I'm just wondering where your head is. What league, what level, what are you thinking these days?
Well, I was all over the place until you went and started to pop off about what Henry Burris got from Calgary. And where did you get your information?
I think Henry.
Do you know who negotiated that contract for Calgary?
Let me guess, you.
Yes. And it was nowhere near what you say. Now, maybe Henry said this and he wanted you to think that, but that was not where it was at. In fact, I have a great story for how that all went down. So the new owners, John Frizani and Ted Heller, they had just bought the team. And basically, hired me as the general manager. And Kahari Jones had been the quarterback there with Matt Dunnigan and wanted to stay. And so when we came in and basically they hired me in the middle of January, by the time I got done doing all the All-Star games and all that, it was middle of February, and I sat down with the owners, and they said, what if we offer Kahari a low deal, but what they felt was a fair deal at $180,000. So we offered Kahari, and we would have not gone on Henry. This is a true story. I mean, I have no reason to make it up. So we went to Henry's agent and said, we will offer you $180,000. And he said, I can't sign for less than 200. I just can't do that. And I kind of understood what he was saying, but that was where he was. I said, as soon as we hang the phone up, we're going to go out and sign Henry Burris. And he said, we can't go that low. And I think he probably thought we would come back to him. But we didn't. We hung up the phone. And again, he was offered right in the 300 range. The whole thing about RVs and all that, again, maybe it happened, but I had no knowledge. It was people who had nothing to do with the Stampeders and the ownership group there. They were not into that. That ownership group was not at all into giving out these extra things, any under the table thing. That just wasn't part of the deal. And so we went to Henry, and like I said, we were going to get him. And I think it ended up being around 300. I think you're exactly right. They weren't going to go over 250. That was kind of Roy's number, I believe. But I don't remember that number exactly. I do remember how the whole thing went down, though. And I do know it wasn't like we just rolled in all this stuff in Calgary to get Henry. Now, Henry changed Calgary completely because Calgary was down to draw on 3,000 to 4,000 people. It was owned by a guy who really didn't care about the CFL or Calgary, and he cared about his son. And as soon as those guys, John and Ferzani and Hellard and Dave Sapungis and that solid group of owners that we had, as soon as they came in, the city got behind them. Then we go out and get Henry Burris and go 11-7 the first year and made the playoffs. We had made the playoffs every year up until last year from 2005. So again, be careful when you start talking, because those things, when you say, they rolled out, they gave him 2 RVs and 500,000, it makes the person who was the GM look like an idiot. And then you got him waiting in the wings to come on. So I don't know.
Oh, Jim. 20 years. It was 20 years ago. The stories get better. Do you remember we played you guys in the preseason, and Roy said we were going to come in and break Henry's neck? Remember that? It was on the front page of the Calgary Sun the next day.
It was classic stuff. It really was.
Okay, be careful, he says. Oh, because you've never fudged numbers. Okay, Laura from Edmonton writes in. Laura, on the Progressive Insurance text line, 902-518-3033, she says, hey, RP, I decided to spend 1 year to totally dedicate to the CFL and NFL as a new viewer. I really enjoyed it. But as a resident of Edmonton, I'm not clear about what's gone on with the Elks. So no preconceived notions about the Elks. My question is, what would be a good game to go to, i.e. visiting team versus Elks? Thanks, RP and squad. Well, I'm going to say go to Sask at Edmonton or Calgary at Edmonton. You can't go wrong. I can tell you right now when that Calgary at Edmonton game will be. It'll be the Saturday after Labor Day weekend. But she's asking, she didn't really know what's going on with Edmonton. Jim, I think everybody feels they've won the offseason, or the free agency and offseason. Do you?
Well, I would say to her, go to the first game they play, because that game's going to tell a lot about, we talked about it last year. They played Saskatchewan in the opener. I don't know who they're playing this year, but we said that game is going to be key to how both seasons, Saskatchewan and Calgary's and Edmonton season go. And sure enough, it did. So I would say go to the first game because it's going to set a tempo for what kind of a team that Mark Killam's trying to build there, doing the things that they're trying to do. Now, in terms of them and free aid, here's the bottom line. There's no, you could talk about a salary cap and 400,000. we've talked about this every week. There's no salary cap in the CFL. And now with the money, the appearance money, if they go, say the cap is $6 million and they go to $6.2 million, they just have to take $200,000 out of their salaries and put it onto appearance money, and they're at the cap. Also, it's a luxury tax. Okay, you're gonna lose. You can lose first round picks. You can lose up to $100,000 if you go over the cap. But it's truly a luxury tax. My belief, and again, you talk to more people than I do, but my belief is Edmonton made a decision. We're going to do what we have to do, and if we got to go over, we're going to go over. But we're going to get this thing changed around. I remember Ed back in when we were both GMs and we were at the NFLPA game when Mike Riley was a free agent. And I was just kind of joking. I said, so what are you going to pay Mike? And he said, whatever I have to. Dead serious. And that's the way Ed operates. He knows what he wants, and he's going to go out and get it. Now, my belief is with the new ownership, he's kind of got carte blanche to go and build this team in the way he wants to do it. So I don't know that there was ever a cap issue that he was worried about. I don't think it was he knew about this 400 and other people didn't. I don't believe people knew about it personally in terms of the people I've talked to. Yeah. But again, I'm not media, so I don't get the same kind of contacts you do.
You are media, and who's paying you? Media. I don't talk to as many as you. I talk to like 3 guys, but here's the thing. I trust them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't need a big net. Interesting here, because one of the reasons I called my guy this morning was about flipping rosters, because I said Riders lost half of their O-line and 3/4 of their D-line or whatever it is. And I said, back in the day, Jim, you guys always wanted continuity year to year to year. It worked. And he goes, I said, it's not a thing anymore. And last night I was on a show here. We talked about the Michigan Wolverines. They went, Jim, the basketball team, from 3 wins last year to the basketball team, Michigan Wolverines, to leading the Big Ten, and they only had 2 returning players, all because of the transfer portal. My question to you is, how does that change coaching when you don't have the same room every year? This guy that I talked to, a GM, didn't seem that worried about it. He's like, we just need to coach him up better.
Yeah, coaching isn't, in pro football, you expect to coach new guys every year. It just, again, if you can get it going to where you have the same guys, it makes it easier because now your players become coaches for the things you're doing. But usually when you have a good team, you're going to lose coaches and you're going to have to be bringing new coaches in, which is a different thing. So I don't think that's an issue at all in terms of turning a team over. Again, the key to turning a team over is getting that quarterback that you know can win. When we were in Calgary, Henry Burris. When we were in Toronto, Ricky Ray. I mean, you have to do that, and you can't speculate on things. That's my concern with Edmonton. Hey, Trey Ford could end up becoming the best thing that Canada has seen a quarterback in forever, but he hasn't. And they're putting all their eggs in his basket. Yeah, Cody's there, but this is Trey Ford's team. They've made that known, and it should be. Okay, that's the way it is. But no matter how much you surround him with great players, it's still going to come down to, can Trey Ford execute when they need and to get them over the hump? They'll be good. They'll be good everywhere. I mean, their defense will be much improved. They went after the lines. I mean, look at the Super Bowl this year. Okay, it was so similar to the Grey Cup in that the team that was slightly favored, okay, came into the game slightly favored, basically physically got their butts kicked. Okay, because you win. This is for the new fan in Edmonton. Always watch the lines. When an offensive and a defensive line can dominate a game, that team's going to win. And that's what happened in our Grey Cup. Toronto's offensive and defensive line controlled Winnipeg's offensive and defensive line. In the Super Bowl, same thing. Philadelphia's offensive and defensive line completely controlled Kansas City's offensive and defensive line. I mean, the score ended 40-22, but it was not that close.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to argue with you on football, but I'll say this. The Grey Cup was a 1-point game going into the fourth quarter. Argos leading, and when Zach cut his finger, to me, that's when it changed. There was that line domination, yes. But if Zach doesn't get hurt and can finish the game, I don't think the Argos win.
Well, that's your prerogative to think that. I mean, Zach actually went down earlier in the in the third quarter, as I recall, because they were coming right down, getting ready to score there, right by where our Duthie and my table were. So I kind of remember that. But my point is that in big games, ultimately lines win out. And Philadelphia played that game against Kansas City, rushing 4 players the whole game. When you can do that, Patrick Mahomes, he went back. He had no time to throw because Philadelphia's defensive line was all over him. And their secondary was giving him so many different looks. He could hold it, but he couldn't find anybody open because of all the different coverage things they were doing. When you can control a team by rushing just 4 guys, and that's what Toronto has had. Toronto's been a team that can rush 4 guys and get pressure. And they've had an offensive line that's been physical enough to both run the ball and protect the quarterback. So, again, when you have those things, you have a chance to win. I thought Kansas City, their offensive line, their tackles, Thuney, we talked about it on your show. He's a guard. He was moved to guard in college because his arms are so short. And when you play tackle, you need to have longer arms in order to separate those guys that are so fast. And he didn't have that. They were getting into his body. And once they're in your body, they're, the quicker guy controls everything. So, I think that the left tackle hurt him. The right tackle, obviously, Juwan Taylor for Kansas City. He's the most penalized player in the league, and he just struggled all day with everybody. So, again, credit to Philadelphia's defensive line, of which I bet you can't name one player. Can you? Right.
No. Kansas City's D-line?
No, Philadelphia.
Philadelphia's. No.
See?
No, they're a
That's
team.
my point is,
absolutely.
It was Brandon Graham and Carter and all these different guys that they were bringing in and that you haven't heard of, but they pressured with 4 people. So, yeah, that was and so I think, again, I look at what Edmonton's doing. The one thing they haven't done, the 2 things. One is Trey Ford going to be we don't know that. That's going to be a big question mark for them. And then the offensive line. They get Beard back from Hamilton, who's a huge get. I think he's one of the best centers in the league. But they haven't addressed the tackle. They're hoping that the guys that they had can, Boyko's re-signed back and that maybe those guys can play. But they weren't good enough. But again, you never know with new thing. And now with Trey Ford at quarterback, it puts a whole different dimension back there for the offensive line.
We only have a minute, but Ted and Red Deer would like your opinion on how will the NIL affect players. What's the wording here? Hey, Coach, do you think the huge NIL dollars will affect how many players come north to the CFL to play?
Well, I think players are more likely to stay in college than even go to the NFL at this point. Those 6th, 7th round guys, that 5th, 6th, 7th round guys that might opt out of their last year and go try out in the NFL, that brings more guys to Canada. I think those guys are going to stay. They're going to stay in college much longer now because the amount of money, the difference in money is it's not that much. I mean, Ohio State, they had a $20 million budget for their players. I mean, so guys there are making more money than they can even make in the NFL as practice roster guys. So those lower half of the rosters in the NFL, which are going to be the CFL guys, they may stay longer there. So yeah, it's definitely going to affect it, but there's just such a ongoing movement of players and both from the UFL, which starts in March, and players will play there, and then some will come to Canada. They'll try to get to the NFL. If they don't get to the NFL, then they'll try to get to Canada next year. Because the UFL is not a career type of league like the CFL. The CFL is a career type of league, and it's a big difference. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of, I think if the free agency in the CFL was interesting, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I just love that people are talking about the CFL right now. I think that's important. I've started breaking down all the guys that are going to be at the combine. So for the draft, so that when we do the draft show, I have knowledge of all these guys, and I've actually broken them down myself. And there's some really good players that are not going to be NFL guys. And that's really the fascinating thing about the CFL draft.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that next week. Jim, thanks for this. It's been fun. Thanks for clarifying things from way back in 2005. And have a great weekend.
Thank you, Rod. I had to call you out. I just had to.
I got you. The CFL on TSN's Jim Parker. We'll be right back with a sports update and viewer takeover. We are live here on Game Plus TV, streaming live and podcasting wherever the best podcasts are found.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit.
As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Canada's premier Junior A Hockey League deserves premier coverage, and at IKS Media, we have you covered for all things SJHL. SJHL Weekly on Monday, a live broadcast across our social media platforms where we interview your favorite players and coaches from across the league and preview the upcoming week. And on Thursday, SJHL Insider, where we look ahead to the weekend that will be and cover everything going on across the league. Catch it all on our social media platforms or on sjhl.ca.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Hey, Football Friday continues, and a reminder, by the way, drink clean, live green, filter your water for a healthier tomorrow. Culligan Water of Regina. Visit CulliganRegina.com. They bring you hour 2. Heavy Jim's joined us aboard here from the Queen City. Welcome, Tony. And while we're at it, I should mention EMJ Marketing. Transform your audience with powerful presentations from EMJ Marketing's elite speakers. Check out their website for more information, emjmarketing.com. They bring you the poll question every day, and we're asking, how do you feel about booing the U.S. national anthem? Is it acceptable or unacceptable? And last I looked, 67% of you saying it's unacceptable. I'm kind of abstaining from voting. I'm a Canadian citizen and will be till death, yet a permanent resident of the USA. Plus, I don't like to fight. So, you do you. Ron in Calgary writes in, he says, booing the U.S. anthem is okay under these circumstances. I love how Ron has arbitrarily declared himself the last word on the matter. Gary in Winnipeg writes in, he's the old fart. He says it every day. Gary in Winnipeg. He says, I watch you every day live on YouTube. Where will you be watching the USA-Canada hockey game on Saturday night? Have a nice weekend, Rod. What an odd question. What an odd personal question. But I will be watching the game in Wellington, Florida with my friend Brent. Brent from Wellington, Florida. I actually watched the game there the other night. Wednesday night? Yeah. And it's funny because I was ripping up the 441. Go have a look at a map. Call it up on your iPhone map. I'm ripping up the 441 in my Jeep. I got all the windows out and just the roof on. And I'm like, this smells like home. I hadn't taken that way to their house before. And when I say it smells like home, it was like hay. Hay is for horses. It smelled like hay in the summertime. I'm like, because as Rich in Edmonton pointed out earlier in the show, it's 26 degrees Celsius here right now. And then, sorry to say, Brent from Wellington and Bree, your better half, got a little closer, like, this smells even more like home. Horse manure.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a lot of cowboys up there, a lot of horse people. So I'll be there. Boy, you guys are getting personal today. You're lucky that I don't mind. Ted in Red Deer says, hey, Rod, who is the helmet on display behind you? Looks cool to me. This is the Cardinal Gibbons Chiefs. Ted, I'm glad you showed up. You've been gone for a while. I don't know where you've been, but this is the 3-time state football champion Cardinal Gibbons High School Chiefs. Deron Carter is the receivers coach. Matt DeBuck is the head coach. I think there's a chance Darian Durant is going to be the quarterbacks coach this year. We're not sure. Doubles and I, we're going to get together here right away. As it turns out, we only live a few blocks apart. And I do mental health work with Cardinal Gibbons players, substance abuse stuff. That's the Cardinal Gibbons Chiefs. Look them up. 3-time state champions, all under the tutelage of Coach DeBuck. I felt like I had a point, but I have no idea what that is anymore. Interesting on that Grey Cup discussion. Do you see how Jim and I never did work together in the CFL? It's really funny. I interviewed him multiple times, and we even clashed then. We didn't even know each other. And we don't really know each other now, though we've gotten to be good friends, but man, do we bang heads. It's entertaining, isn't it? He said the CFL Grey Cup was just like the Super Bowl. And he's not the first guy. I've heard other fans say that, but I'm like, this game was over by the second quarter. The Grey Cup was a 1-point game going into the fourth. And I will not go to my grave with this because I don't care that much, but if Zach Caleros doesn't get hurt, Winnipeg probably wins that game. Come on. Jim doesn't agree. God, makes for good TV, though, doesn't it? Shy in Saskatchewan writes in, he says, blame all you want on Zach Caleros and his finger. When Chris Streveler went in, I'm sorry, Shaw, I can't understand. But what they didn't have a quality backup to Zach Caleros. That changed the game. But what do I know? I'm just a stupid barker. Rich in Edmonton says, hey, Rod, if you're ever up around Ocala there, I know it's like the cast of Hee-Haw. I know. Say less. By the way, that's not an insult. That's a Florida term. Like when you say no more, you say less. I got a rodeo clown friend up there. He said to come visit. I've driven through there, middle of the night. Haven't really felt the need to stop. You know what I'm saying? Ocala's up north of Orlando on the way over to Tallahassee. Done it a few times. Let's take a break here and come back with overtime. We'll put a bow on everything. Should be fun right after this. Here live on Game Plus TV, streaming live and podcasting wherever the best podcasts are found.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit.
As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Canada's premier Junior A Hockey League deserves premier coverage, and at IKS Media, we have you covered for all things SJHL. SJHL Weekly on Monday, a live broadcast across our social media platforms where we interview your favorite players and coaches from across the league and preview the upcoming week. And on Thursday, SJHL Insider, where we look ahead to the weekend that will be and cover everything going on across the league. Catch it all on our social media platforms or on sjhl.ca.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
We're back at it for overtime. So many of you love this segment, and I know why. More of you, less of me. But what I can tell you is it's brought to you by Overtime Hockey Lanes, and if you're looking for the perfect place to perfect your shot, look no further than Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary. With state-of-the-art shooting lanes, top-notch equipment, it's the ultimate place for players of all ages and skill levels, whether you're prepping for the big game or just want to have some fun. Achieve your hockey goals at Overtime Hockey Lanes, 28th Street Northeast, Calgary. I love saying that. What else did I want to get to? Oh, while we're at it, Landmark Cinemas. In Landmark Cinemas now. If you're looking for a movie, maybe, is that something you might be interested in this weekend? Heart Eyes. Heart Eyes. For the past several years, the Heart Eyes killer has wreaked havoc on Valentine's Day by stalking and murdering romantic couples. This Valentine's Day, no couple is safe. Starring Olivia Holton and Michaela Watkins, Heart Eyes is in Landmark Cinemas now. Might check that out this weekend. Before I get to this heavy gym sports update, oh my God, we got so many sponsors, we don't know what to do with ourselves. I'm going to be heading over to FAU campus, which isn't that far. It's about a mile and a half to watch NCAA softball. It is the, what the hell are they calling it? Let's call it the Valentine's Classic. It's something like that. FAU girls softball. You may see them on television, right? ESPN shows the national championships. They got a big tournament they're hosting. Villanova's there in town or here in town, and I'm thinking, why wouldn't I go sit in the stands in the ballpark? Because I can. But I'll be thinking about hockey. Teams have a day off today before Saturday's doubleheader at the Four Nations Face-Off tournament in Montreal. The USA, which flattened Finland 6-1 last night, leads the standings with 3 points, followed by Canada with dose. Sweden has 1. Finland's got 0. Canada plays the U.S. Saturday night, while Sweden and Finland square off earlier in the day. The tournament moves to Boston from Monday doubleheader. Meanwhile, Matthew Tkachuk did not like the fact hockey fans in Montreal booed the U.S. national anthem before the game last night. The alternate captain of the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers visited the White House earlier this month, and Tkachuk told the gathering, quote, "I wake up every day really grateful to be an American." The sports update is for Heavy Gym. Heavy Gym isn't just about lifting weights. It's about lifting your spirit, your strength, and your potential. Step into the gym that's changing lives. Find out more at heavygym.ca. Matthew Tkachuk is one of those guys that, and you people in Calgary know him pretty well. He's smart. I think he realizes they're not being booed last night because of who they are. They were booing because of the U.S. President, Donald Trump. So I think we're accepting everybody's opinion on this, hoping to not start a cross-border war. I didn't like it. I wouldn't do it, but also don't tell people what to do. If you've ever noticed, I don't tell people what to do. It's rare, I know. Gary in Winnipeg writes in, he says, never boo any national anthem. But if you want to protest because of Trump, remain seated while it's played. Oh, you could do that, but who would know? But that's, you do. Kirk in Toronto writes in and he says, hey, Rod, there was a lot of similarities between the Grey Cup / Super Bowl with all those picks by the defenses in line of scrimmage. I agree with Mr. Barker. Zach lost the 2 previous Grey Cups, not being injured. Huh? You're saying if he hadn't got hurt, they still would have lost? We don't know the answer to that. Don't play with my head. There's not anything left to play with. Rich in Edmonton says, any day spent at a ballpark in February is a great plan. Yeah, I can't wait. They started the game 25 minutes ago, so I'll be showing up halfway through. That's okay. $10 to get in. My kind of event. John in Edmonton writes in, he says, Rod, do you think Team Canada has a shot at winning tomorrow against the USA? Sure, John. Tune in and find out. 8 o'clock Eastern on ABC. And for you, Sportsnet. Of course they have a shot. They were the favorite team. It's going to be a hell of a game. It's funny because I talked to some media that's there covering it, and they're like, we'd rather be where you are. We're shivering here. There's a snowstorm. I'm like, stop. If you wanted to be here, you could be.
Enjoy the hockey. Jeff the Stamps fan says, Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. So there you go. Can all the CFL fans get along? I feel like they can. Did I get through everything? 902-518-3033. This is wild in that Moose wasn't even here and we accomplished all of our goals. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Ron in Calgary, God bless him, writes in and says, well, Jim's gone now, but who do you think are going to be the surprise CFL teams this year? Just hang on that one, bro. It's Valentine's Day. You better be careful because we're heading into the dead spot on the CFL calendar. Oh, my God, earlier on, and the people that do joke with me about Jim's likes to talk. You know, I asked him at the request of Ted and Red Deer, how will the huge NIL money, name, image, likeness money in college affect players coming to Canada? I said, we only got a minute, Jim, but how will NIL money affect He answered that, then morphed it around to Canadian college and the combine. And I'm like, no, we don't have time. You know what I'm saying? So we're heading into the dead part of the calendar in the CFL. So I hope you've enjoyed this wild free agency couple of week window because it's coming to an end here quick in terms of interesting things to talk about. So if we, on a slow day, we will bring up who the surprise teams will be. But let's be honest, there's only 9 teams in the league. We talked a lot about Four Nations face-off. That was the big story and the booing. I will say it again. You do you. I mean, it's an opinion show. It's a talk show. I have a lot of opinions. I don't have an opinion on that one. My dad, I was raised one way. Don't boo the other team. And to boo your own team's unthinkable. But not everybody had a dad like me. We did talk about the CFL free agency. Well, it's interesting when we talked about the Blue Jays and Vladdy, a lot of strong opinions came forth. It is Canada's team, let's be honest. And Four Nations face-off. So everybody have a great, safe weekend. And we'll be on the air Tuesday, noon Eastern. See you here. Because I thought I was going to see Cyndi Lauper. And then I get there, and she's nowhere to be found.
You just got duped.
I got duped.
Yeah.
Hey, who wants to get duped by Dupe?